Imagine going to the bathroom in the middle of the night, just like any other night. But you never come back. The next morning, a neighbor finds... well, not you. Just a pile of ashes on the floor. That's exactly what happened to 92-year-old Dr. John Irving Bentley. On the floor of his bathroom, there was nothing but a pile of fine ash. Nearby, his walker stood untouched. One of his legs, from the knee down and still wearing a slipper, lay eerily intact, and burned through the floor was a hole, precisely the size of a human body. But here's the truly bizarre part. The rest of the bathroom was fine. The paint wasn't scorched. Towels hanging just 3 feet away were untouched. Only Dr. Bentley himself had been consumed by a fire so intense it turned his bones to powder. There were no accelerants, no obvious source of ignition, and absolutely no logical explanation. Just another terrifying case of what some call spontaneous human combustion, the phenomenon where people seem to burn from the inside out, leaving the world around them almost untouched. For centuries, these cases have been documented across different countries and different eras, but they all share the same disturbing details. First, the victim burns almost completely to ash, a level of destruction that requires temperatures over 1,500 degrees Fahrenheit, far hotter than a typical house fire. Yet, the room itself shows minimal damage. The fire seems to consume the body but stops at its boundaries, as if it's following rules that normal fire doesn't obey. And then there's the limb. In many cases, a single limb, usually a leg, survives completely untouched by the flames that reduced everything else to powder. The victims are often elderly, sometimes overweight, and frequently alone. They're usually found in their homes, either sitting or lying down. And while some had been smoking or drinking, many hadn't. The common thread is always the same. No adequate explanation for how the fire started or why it burned with such impossible, localized intensity. Let's travel back to July 2nd, 1951, in St. Petersburg, Florida. 67-year-old Mary Risa said goodnight to her son around 9 p.m. She was sitting in her favorite armchair, wearing a nightgown, having taken 2 sleeping pills and smoking a cigarette. The next morning, her landlady noticed the doorknob to Mary's apartment was hot. When the police broke down the door, they found the apartment was barely damaged. But Mary was gone. In her chair, all that remained was a skull shrunk to the size of a baseball, 1 slipper with a foot still inside, and about 10 pounds of ash. The chair's springs had melted, which would require temperatures of at least 2,500 degrees. And yet, a stack of newspapers just feet away was perfectly fine. The FBI and the local fire marshal investigated, but none could explain how a woman had been reduced to ash in her living room without the entire building going up in flames. The case of the Cinder Woman remains one of the most famous and baffling examples of SHC. Go back even further, to 1731, in Cesena, Italy. Countess Cornelia Bondi, 62, went to bed feeling fine. The next morning, her maid found a pile of ashes on the floor where the Countess should have been. Her legs, from the knees down, were intact. A greasy, sticky substance covered everything nearby, and the air smelled foul, but the bed she'd been lying in wasn't burned. Only a small area of the floor beneath her was damaged. This case, one of the earliest to be well documented, established the chilling pattern that would repeat for the next 3 centuries. Now, scientists really do unlike the idea of spontaneous human combustion because it seems to violate the basic laws of physics. Fire needs 3 things: fuel, oxygen, and an ignition source. It spreads. It doesn't just selectively consume one person while leaving a wooden chair intact, but the cases persist. So theories have emerged. The most accepted scientific explanation is called the wick effect. It suggests that a small external flame, like a dropped cigarette, ignites a person's clothing. Their body fat then melts and soaks into the clothes, which act like the wick of a candle, allowing the body to smolder slowly but intensely for hours. This could explain how a body is cremated without setting the room on fire, but it doesn't explain the cases where victims weren't near any flame source, or the ones where the fire clearly started inside the body, or the accounts of people burning in mere minutes, not hours. Other theories have been proposed. Could heavy alcohol consumption make someone flammable? Tests show that's impossible. The body is mostly water, What about rare phenomena like ball lightning, or a buildup of flammable acetone in the body due to a metabolic condition? None of these theories fully account for all the cases or the central mystery. Why does the fire burn so hot, yet so selectively? In October 1980, in Wales, a retired postal worker named Henry Thomas was found burned to death in his living room chair. The autopsy showed his internal organs were incinerated, but bizarrely, his pants weren't burned through, and the chair he sat in was barely scorched. The family insisted Henry didn't smoke, and investigators found no faulty wiring, no heaters, nothing. The official cause of death was listed as fire of unknown origin. 2 years later, in September 1982, Jeannie Saffin was sitting with her father in their kitchen. He turned away for just a moment, and when he looked back, her upper body was engulfed in flames. He described it as a sudden flash erupting from within her. She made no sound as she burned. She died 8 days later. The kitchen had no fire damage. The coroner couldn't determine the cause. Jeannie's father insisted until his death. The fire came from inside her. I saw it. Not everyone who experiences this dies. In 1974, a salesman named Jack Angel woke up in his trailer with severe burns on his arm, so deep they required amputations. He had no memory of what happened, and nothing in the trailer was burned. Doctors said the burn pattern suggested intense heat originating from Asterisk. Inside Asterisk, his arm. Modern forensics largely dismisses SHC, arguing that every case can be explained by the wick effect and a forgotten ignition source. They say the body's fat concentrates the fire, and that's why the surroundings are spared. But this official skepticism doesn't address the core questions. Why does this strange pattern repeat so consistently across centuries? Why are victims often found as if they simply sat there and burned without a struggle? And most disturbingly, why do eyewitnesses describe the fire starting from within? As recently as 2010, in Galway, Ireland, 76-year-old Michael Faherty was found burned to death in his home. His body was completely destroyed, but the room was fine. After an extensive investigation, the coroner did something almost unheard of in modern times. He officially listed the cause of death as spontaneous human combustion. He stood by his conclusion, stating that after eliminating all other possibilities, it was the only explanation that fit the evidence. The mystery continues. Most cases today are quietly filed away as undetermined. But the questions remain. Maybe there's a rational, scientific answer for every single one of these events. Or maybe, just maybe, there's something about our own biology that we simply don't understand yet. A rare, catastrophic metabolic process that can turn a living person into their own funeral pyre. One moment, you're sitting in your chair. The next, you're a mystery that may never be solved. Thanks for watching. If you found this story as unsettling as I did, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the unknown. Stay safe out there.